Welcome to our second episode of Coffee with Samso. I've got Paul Werndly here with me.
Yes.
And we've got a slightly different topic here, but I think once the conversation go along, we'll sort of figure out how it sort of fits into how the business world and everything else. So, Paul, maybe you could just quickly introduce yourself and we'll get on the show.
Thanks. Thanks, Noel. And thanks for the delicious coffee as well. Beautiful. I graduated as a naturopath, or a doctor of natural medicine, in 1996. That encompasses food as medicine, herbal medicine, clinical nutrition, and disease process, metabolism, homeopathy. Even get to read the central nervous system, Chinese nail and tongue diagnosis. I learned Ayurvedic Chinese diet, ancient Greek diet. Then I went into lecturing very soon after that. So I did 12 years lecturing in college. I became a lecturer quite quickly for a graduate. Did 12 years of lecturing. And the whole time I've been a consultant as well. So that's really my bread and butter. Or low GI bread and butter, I should say.
Yeah.
Is consulting people on their diet, nutrition. And I'm working with restaurants and cafes, like I work with No Menu.
Yep.
And I also work with Smart Collective, a few different companies. I sort of freelance myself around where I work with cafes, restaurants, healthcare centres, food stores, because one of the areas I've really specialised in is food as medicine, and that's now evolved into me being a specialised health food chef.
Okay.
Cool. So I cook specialty health foods and recipes and do instructional classes and talks and seminars even.
Yeah.
There's a real brief.
Yeah. Well, I met Paul last week over a function at No Menu.
Yes.
And we talked about how about low GI and things like that, and I'm sort of working with Hollister, who do make low GI products. So that's where our interest sort of came about. Yes. So maybe let's start with, everyone talks about low GI. I remember I was going back a few years now, had a personal trainer who talked about low GI and things like that. It just sort of flirted in and out of understanding of what it is. I mean, it's pretty straightforward when you sort of hear it.
Yes, when it's simplified.
Then when you practice it, it becomes a little bit forgetful and, well, we use the word complicated, but you just sort of get sort of confused in some ways. But anyway, correct. So let's start that. Maybe give us a rundown of what is GI, and then what is low and high, and how does that work? Yeah,
keep it simple, because the simplest concepts of anything are easy to grasp, but humans have a great habit of making things too complex and too dynamic. So if I just explain that Glycemic Index, the GI, is actually a measurement of how fast sugar enters your body from eating it. And it's normally a 0 to 100 scale. That's really a yardstick, almost like on a car. You got 0 to 100 kilometres. So the 100 is high, but there's actually foods that are higher, like jelly beans, are one of the highest at 140. And then they got 0, would be something that's got no carbohydrate or sugar in it at all. Water would be 0, like pure rainwater would be 0. So then you got basically low glycemic is 0 to 54. That's low. Okay, 0, 1 to 54 is classed as low glycemic index. 55 to 69 is mid glycemic, and 70 to 100 is classed as high. But if a food's 68, it's still high. It's on the high end of mid, you see. So there's a cut-off point there that they've made to say low, medium, or high. It's similar to speed limits, low speed, high, etc. So like I said, hundreds was measured on glucose. So they got some glucose, put it in water, dissolved it, drank it, and they tracked the graph of your blood sugar for 2 hours. And that was set at 100, because they needed a yardstick. Yeah. So that's your yardstick to 100 and that's high GI. Like I said, anything over 70 is high, classed as high. And then basically they then experimented with around 50 grams of each food, and mostly carbohydrate based and sugar based. But sometimes there's carbohydrates or sugars in foods you wouldn't think there is, so you've got to consider the whole scope of diet and nutrition. So they then tracked the blood sugar curve for about 2 hours after eating 50 grams of white rice or naan bread or white bread or a soft drink or orange juice, apple juice. Like apple juice is quite high.
Okay.
Quite high. Some apple juices are higher than soft drinks because you've got the fruit from the apple, and then you've got the sugar they put in as well, so it's a double sugar. So some foods are double and triple sugars.
Okay.
Which
Would that be the same for orange juice and any juices of that nature?
Correct. Because if you get an orange off a tree, they're quite sweet, but if you get some orange juice and had that straight after, it's sweeter. So when the no added sugar thing is a bit of a worry there, because it usually means that the manufacturer who's put the orange juice in the bottle or the apple juice in the bottle hasn't added the sugar, but the factory that's crushed the apples, who they bought it off, has added the sugar. So, but there's no added sugar just means we haven't added it.
It's a bit like the organic concept, isn't it? You plant the tree organically, but the guy that you bought the property from stuffed it up with fertilizer and your plants, your pesticides, and your organic fruit tree or whatever is nourishing itself from the pesticides that's underneath.
Correct. Yeah, that's right. So, like I said, there's always exceptions to the law, but that's the basics of the glycemic index, and it's very scientific, and it's really and it does slightly vary from person to person because your body metabolizes sugars and carbohydrates differently depending on your own metabolism.